Hi, this is Mrs. Raro, and in this video, I'm going to go over multiplication of radicals. All right, so just as a rule of thumb, whenever we multiply, we apply the same exact properties that we have learned in the past. So for example, if we have to express the product of parentheses 10 minus square root of 3 times 10 plus square root of 3, and if we have to write this in simplest form, you might guess that we have to FOIL, and that is correct. We have to distribute when we can. So whenever we distribute, we always go in order. First times first, which is 10 times 10, which is 100. And then my outers, this 10 times radical 3 is a positive 10 radical 3. And then my inners, which is minus square root of 3 times 10 is the same, minus 10 square root of 3. And then my last terms, negative square root of 3 times positive square root of 3 is a negative square root of 9, all right? Now we're going to add our like terms, which are positive 10 square root of 3 minus 10 square root of 3, which is 0. So they actually cancel out. And then I'm going to then reduce this one too, which is square root of 9 is actually positive 3. So really, all in all, if I bring this down, which is 100, and I cancel these two because they do cancel out, and then I bring this down, which is technically minus 3, all of this gets simplified to 97. Okay, all right, let's try another one. So let's do the square root of 3 plus square root of 5. So again, these don't combine because they don't have the same radicand, right? This is a 3 and this is a 5. So you can't combine these as the square root of 8. So this is being multiplied again by itself. So we're going to FOIL. So the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. If you want a little bit of a shortcut, here it is. If you have the same exact square root that's being multiplied, it is equivalent to its radicand, because the square root of 3 times square root of 3 is square root of 9, and then now you're back to 3 when you reduce it, right? So this is just a whole number 3. All right, now my outers. So the square root of 3 times the square root of 5 becomes the square root of 15, which can't be reduced anymore. And then the square root of 5 times the square root of 3 is another square root of 15. And then my last is the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, which is a whole number 5. All right, so generally you want to get together your whole numbers. So your whole numbers here are 3 and 5. And please be mindful, these are not coefficients. These are whole numbers. All right, so 3 and 5 makes 8. Okay, and then put the plus sign. Now you can combine these two. The square root of 15 and the square root of 15 does not become the square root of 30, all right? Because when you add, you want to add the coefficients if they have the same exact radicand and index. So these are like terms. So there are 2 of these square root of 15s, all right? So altogether, this is your final answer, because now a whole number 8 or a rational number 8 and 2 radical 15 can't combine together anymore because 8 doesn't have a square root of 15. They're not like terms, okay? All right, let's take a look at this example to see if you can figure this out all on your own. Actually, I think this is the same thing as this. So we will just, no, it's not. Sorry. All right, go for it and then see if you can do this on your own. Okay, so again, we'll do the same idea here. So the square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just a whole number 3. And then the square root of 3 times 10 is a positive 10 radical 3. And then negative 10 times square root of 3 is negative 10 radical 3. And then we have negative 10 times negative 10. Negative 10 times positive 10 is negative 100. All right, so although they are the same terms that we have received here, the order in which you do this is important, right? Because then when these two cancel out, you're not left with 100 minus 3, you're left with 3 minus 100. All right, so this is very important to note that this answer is negative 97. Okay. All right, so why don't you pause this video and see if you could do this one on your own, and then unpause it when you're ready for the solution. Okay, so we're going to multiply the first term times first term, which becomes a whole number 2. And then our middle terms, so this becomes minus square root of 10. And this becomes a positive square root of 10. And then this becomes negative 5. Okay, these two will cancel each other out because this is a negative 1 plus a 1, which makes it a 0. So you don't have to write 0 radical 10. right? You just have to identify that this is 2 minus 5, which is equal to negative 3. Okay? All right, so that's the basis of multiplication. There are also different problems with multiplication, but for the most part, like for example, if we did this, we need to be mindful that we would have to simplify the radical form. We can simplify it now or we can simplify it later. So I like to just simplify later and just FOIL now, right? So this would be negative 3 times negative 5, which is positive 15. And then this would be negative 3 times 2 radical 90, which is negative 6 radical 90. Okay. And then this would be 3 radical 10 times negative 5 is negative 15 radical 10. And then our final leap is positive 3 radical 10 plus positive 2 times positive 2 radical 90 becomes positive 6 radical 900. All right, so just by taking a look at this, we can reduce the square root of 900 as 30. All right, this reduces to 30. So this is just 6 times 30, which is 180. Okay, this 180 and this 15 will combine together. So 180 plus 15 is 195. All right, so 195 so far. Now these we don't know yet if they're going to combine because we still have to take the square root of 90 and reduce it to the square root of 9 times the square root of 10. And the square root of 9 is 3 radical 10. So right now we're dealing with negative 6 times 3 radical 10, which is negative 18 radical 10. And then you have this minus 15 radical 10. So because they have two of the same kind, we can now combine a negative 18 minus 15, which is negative 33, right? So now we have our rational number, which is 195, and our irrational number, which is minus 33 square root of 10. So that's your final answer, okay? Okay, so that's a little bit more advanced, but that is it. There are others that you would have to think about, so such as maybe something like this when it is being all squared. So what you would have to do there is to multiply 4 plus square root of 5x by itself again. Okay, so here we have 4 plus the square root of 5x times 4 plus the square root of 5x. So generally it's the same rule. We're still foiling 4 times 4, which is 16, and then 4 times 5x is positive 4 square root of 5x. The square root of 5x times 4 is the same number. And then the square root of 5x times the square root of 5x, like I said earlier, if they're the same exact radicand, same exact index, it just becomes a shortcut of just the radicand. All right? So that is a little bit different from what we were doing before, but again, quite the same. The only difference here is that this is a 16 and this is a 5x, right? So you can't combine those, so I'm just going to leave it as 16 plus 5x. All right, now together these two can combine because they have the same exact radicand and index. So together you have 8 of these. And that's your final answer really because you can't do much anymore. This is it, right? You can't combine this is 16, that's a whole number. This one has a variable and then this one has a radical. So you can't combine these. Okay, that is it. Thank you for watching.